I actually would like to begin with the final objection that Vendenhog covers in his essay. And this is the objection, the abolitionist objection, that use of the death penalty, retention of the death penalty, is morally degrading to the criminal. So this is the objection based on moral degradation. And I think that this objection is very similar to the argument made by Stephen Nathanson in his essay. So the objection essentially is that by killing a criminal, we are degrading the moral worth of that criminal, which we ought not do. Vendenhog considers the possibility that criminals have a natural, inviolable right to life, basic natural rights that should not be violated. This is the source of the objection. In response, Vendenhog argues that in fact, the death penalty, when deserved, actually affirms the dignity of the criminal. Rather than destroy the dignity of the criminal, the use of the death penalty for murderers, for example, actually affirms the dignity, the autonomy and rationality of the murderer, according to Vendenhog. The line of thinking here is this. When that murderer committed his or her crime, she did so, or he did so, autonomously and based on their own rationality. At that moment in time, that murderer was free to either murder or not murder. And they were rational enough to use their reason to decide that they believed that murder was the right thing to do. If that was their autonomous, rational choice, then the best way for us as a community, as a society, as a government, the best way for us to respect the dignity of that criminal is to bring upon them the punishment that they knew they would receive when committing the crime. In other words, if you were to not punish the murderer with the death penalty, you would essentially be saying to that criminal, you are not autonomous and rational enough for us to respect your choices. And according to Kantian moral theory, or at least Vendenhog's interpretation of Kantian moral theory, that is actually to disrespect the dignity of that criminal. So again, since the criminal freely and rationally made their own choice, no one forced them to do this. They volunteered to commit the crime. Based on that, the best way to respect their choice is to hold them responsible for the act that they chose to perform and the punishments that are on the books, that are legal for that crime. And the legal punishment for murder in this country is the death penalty. Again, the criminal opened themselves up to that punishment by committing the crime. They did not have to do that. They freely, autonomously, and rationally chose to do that. And so as a way of respecting that choice, as a way of respecting their dignity, according to Vendenhog, we should bring upon them the punishment that they deserve, that they volunteered for. So that is the initial objection and Vendenhog's response. Vendenhog also considers briefly the objection that the death penalty is excessive punishment, that it is a worse punishment than can be deserved by any crime or any criminal. And Vendenhog has a very short but interesting response here, and he says essentially that to believe that the death penalty is always excessive is to believe in something that is an article of faith. In other words, there's no way to prove or to verify that the death penalty will always be excessive for any crime. One way to understand what Vendenhog is saying here is to imagine perhaps the worst crime possible, maybe genocide, right? The killing of mass amounts of people. And the question Vendenhog would pose is, does not the person responsible for genocide, deserve the death penalty? If you kill 1 million people, innocent people, you don't deserve the death penalty? What if you kill 5 million? You don't deserve the death penalty? What if you kill 10 million? At some point, Vanden Hog believes the death penalty will be deserved. So you cannot just strike it out from the get-go saying it's always excessive. Presumably, there are some crimes that are severe enough that they warrant the most severe punishment, which would be death. So those are Vanden Hog's responses to those two initial objections.